We are broadcasting from Warsaw, Poland, at the UN Climate Summit, known as COP19. Officially, it's the 19th conference of the parties to the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, or UNFCCC. The high-level segment of the talks is beginning today with UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon set to address the summit. The talks are occurring as global carbon dioxide emissions from burning fossil fuels have reached a record high. According to the Global Carbon Project, the amount of greenhouse gas emissions rose 2.2% last year. Since 1990, when the Kyoto Protocol was signed, carbon dioxide emissions have soared 61%. Last week's massive typhoon in the Philippines has cast a cloud over the summit. The official death toll from the typhoon has risen to over 4,000, but the actual number is believed to be significantly higher, with many villages and towns not even able to be reached at this point. Our first guest today is the chief Filipino climate negotiator, Yeb Saño. He's just entered the 9th day of a fast to demand an ambitious climate deal. Much of the world was first introduced to Yeb Saño last year while he was attending the climate talks in Doha. Another massive storm, Typhoon Bopha, struck the Philippines. It ended up killing over 1,100 people. He gave an emotional speech to the delegates last year in Doha.
The outcome of our work is not about what our political masters want. It is about what is demanded of us by 7 billion people. I appeal to all, please, no more delays, no more excuses. Please let Doha be remembered as the place where we found the political will to turn things around. And let 2012 be remembered as the year the world found the courage to do so, to find the courage to take responsibility for the future we want.
That's Yeb Saño speaking last year in Doha. Well, when the UN Climate Summit began this year, last Monday, Yeb Saño found himself in a similar position. But this time, an even larger typhoon was devastating his home country while he was here attending yet another climate change conference, now as chief climate negotiator for the Philippines. This is part of what Yeb Saño said last week here in Warsaw.
Mr. President, in Doha, we asked, if not us, then who? If not now, then when? If not here, then where? But here, in Warsaw, we may very well ask these same forthright questions. What my country is going through as a result of this extreme climate event is madness. The climate crisis is madness. Mr. President, we can stop this madness right here in Warsaw. We cannot sit and stay helpless staring at this international climate stalemate. It is now time to raise ambition and take action. We need an emergency climate pathway.
That's Yeb Saño, the chief Filipino climate negotiator, speaking last Monday here in Warsaw. Just before this broadcast today, Yeb Saño joined climate activists in delivering a petition signed by over 590,000 people from around the world, demanding world leaders take urgent and bolder action to tackle climate change.
We stand here knowing that hundreds of thousands, maybe even millions around the world are standing with us in this difficult time for our country, but also in this difficult time for the planet, for the climate. We are deeply moved and deeply touched with this expression of solidarity from hundreds of thousands of people, and we are here to deliver their voices into this process, into this national stadium here in Warsaw. And we hope that it can create the kind of impact that people around the world, millions, even billions, are desiring. And this is a call to once and for all take ambitious steps to address climate change, which is now affecting lives, livelihoods. We are very glad and heartened to see this kind of solidarity being expressed by civil society, especially by many young people here. And I cannot thank them enough for what they have done in supporting the call for action here in the climate negotiations. We stand with them as well as they stand with us. Thank you very much.
That's Yeb Saño, now joining us on Democracy Now!, the Philippines Climate Change Commissioner, who is the head of the Philippines Climate Delegation here in Warsaw, Poland. It's good to have you with us. You are in the 9th day of, well, until I saw your news conference a few minutes ago, I would have said your hunger fast, but you're choosing not to call it that.
Yes. Hello, Amy, and I'm glad to be here on Democracy Now! Yes, I have never used the word hunger in all of these days since we commenced this voluntary fast. First and foremost, it is, of course, in solidarity with Filipinos right now who are struggling to find food in the wake of Super Typhoon Haiyan, and also meant as a means to rally support for climate action here in Warsaw.
Talk about what you're hoping to accomplish with this fast.
Fasting has always been, for me, a personal spiritual journey. And this is a purely voluntary act. I never imagined that it would gather so much support and solidarity around the world as it has now. But what I tend to achieve, really, I don't really like to predicate the outcome of this meeting with a purely personal act of conscience. But if it creates a political impact here, and we have stated in the opening of this meeting that we will continue to fast until we see a meaningful outcome here in Warsaw. And we made specific reference to certain items on the agenda here, including, which is something that's very obvious for the Philippines, an international mechanism for losses and damages as a result of climate change.
In our third segment, we're going to be speaking with the Indian reporter who got a hold of the confidential documents that came out of Secretary of State John Kerry's office, talking to the climate team from the United States, warning the climate team that loss and damage, this idea, this UN term, could lead to blame and liability. Can you talk about what loss and damage means, what you are demanding here?
Yes, climate change, as we know, is wreaking havoc in many parts of the world, and we see this manifest in many kinds of impacts. Now, we talk about adaptation, which is the means for people, countries, and communities to be able to cope or adjust to changing climate. When people and natural ecosystems no longer are able to adapt adequately, then you incur losses and damages. As what we see when sea levels rise, when storms become more intense, when you have massive droughts. These are the things that happen, and we can no longer cope. And that's why we need to establish this mechanism with this, what we can call a third wave of climate change, because we now see losses. Now, this mechanism, as we discuss it here in the climate negotiations, aims to provide developing countries that are already incurring losses and damages a means to assess these losses. We need new knowledge to tell us how these losses can be calculated, how they are associated with climate change. We have no mechanism in place for us to assess that, and this is what we're asking for here. And I would say, and what I would tell our developed country partners is, why not?
What is at stake for the developed countries? What would loss and damage mean? And why do you relate the typhoons that have hit the Philippines with increasing severity to the policies of the developed world?
It's not as black and white as we can see, but developed countries probably fear a discussion on liabilities. But that is always a difficult discussion because we probably virtually have no way of assigning liability from specific losses to certain countries. That is always difficult, even in the context of providing financial support. That has always been a difficult thing to address here, because there is no way of knowing how the burden will be shared among countries that have spewed greenhouse gases into the atmosphere. So that is probably the fear of developed countries when it comes to a discussion of compensation.
We're usually based in New York. We're here in Warsaw at the UN Climate Summit for the week, but the U.S. is historically the largest emitter of greenhouse gases. What do you think the responsibility of the U.S. is?
The U.S. Accounting for at least 1/4 of cumulative emissions has a huge responsibility, a moral responsibility to tackle climate change, not just to address it domestically, but also to be able to provide support for developing countries for us to adapt, and also for us to, in earnest, contribute towards addressing this problem with our own mitigation actions.
I'd like to ask you about your own family. This is not theoretical for you. You're in Warsaw, in Poland, while your country is being devastated by this typhoon. First, do you have the overall figures at this point for the number of people who are dead that we know of at this point? And then talk about your own family.
The only way that I receive information on the situation on the ground is through our National Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Council. That's the official government body working on disasters. And right now what we have received is around 4,000 people confirmed dead. And we base body count based on recovered bodies. So that means it can rise significantly as more people are accounted for. As for my own family, we have received good news that my brother, as we have related earlier, my brother had survived the ordeal, but he spent 4 days gathering bodies of the dead together with other people who decided that, other survivors who decided that it was something they had to do to avoid an epidemic. Now he has been reunited with my parents and other family members and relatives who are based in the hardest hit areas. We are making plans to temporarily house them in Manila.
Say that again.
We have many relatives in Tacloban City that have been affected, also in neighboring towns, and families members who have been accounted for we are planning to ship them to Manila so that they can have temporary residence.
So you saw that your brother was alive by looking at the media?
It was such a great relief for us because he was seen in a video footage from news coverage on the day immediately in the aftermath of Typhoon Haiyan. So that provided us with great relief because many people had to agonize for many days, not knowing what happened to their loved ones. But as of now, we're still waiting for word for many of my father's relatives.
Your brother is named AG?
Yes.
And he was helping the firemen and the relief workers to bury bodies or to take the bodies, put them in body bags? That's
right.
Have you spoken to him since?
Yes, I spoke with him the moment he landed in Manila.
How is he psychologically?
He sounds strong, and but he has mentioned that he is experiencing a lot of flashbacks. He just can't remove the faces of the dead in his mind. And according to a friend who is an expert on psychosocial trauma, these are clear manifestations of trauma.
We're talking to Yeb Saño, Philippines' chief climate change negotiator here in Warsaw, Poland. When we come back, I want to talk about the speech he gave at the floor of the plenary and the young people who gathered with him afterwards to escort him out of the session, why they've been banned from the conference by Christiana Figueroa, the head of the UN Climate Summit. Stay with us.